Most people heard of it, including doctors. Why have most doctors not heard of it? There's the assumption that you can't do anything about it. That's clearly the assumption in the United States, despite the fact that we do know that niacin for many people will greatly decrease Lp(a). Now, there were some studies that were done that said, you know what, we gave niacin, it didn't really lower Lp(a), or it doesn't lower and therefore it doesn't work. Well, I've got videos where I quoted the principal investigator of that study saying, we know it works. I'm really worried about the study that I just did because I'm very much afraid that it's going to be misinterpreted and people will not, using niacin for Lp(a) is going to go out of style in medicine. And that's exactly what happened. Now, it didn't in Europe. The European standards committees retained niacin in their treatment components. And that's one of the things that I'll discuss with patients who have this issue. Now, how about other things? Are there any new treatments? Yes, over the past couple of years, there's a new type of a drug. It's called an antisense drug. And again, hate to get political by mentioning scientific issues, but if you think mRNA is a genetic technology, and the antisense drugs are very, very similar in their mechanism. Those antisense drugs have knocked it out of the park in terms of the Lp(a) concentration, as in decreases of like 90%. Huge decreases. Now, I've got several patients who were able to find out where studies were being done and actually get themselves included in a study. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the antisense drug. You might get the placebo. The antisense drugs are not available yet unless I'm behind on that issue. But I do suspect maybe in our lifetime, and for sure in our next generation's lifetime, there will be some medications out there that have a much bigger impact than we've been able to have in the past. Again, if you start looking at other things to do for it, the head of cardiology at Mayo was quoted, his was sort of the standard quote, and that is, well, manage your other risk factors, which is true, and take a statin. Then there's argument about whether a statin actually works for this, and most of us would say no. And then you'd say, well, why would that doctor be saying take a statin? Because he's saying, well, the statin's going to manage the other risk factors. So, Margaret, you brought up a great point. You gave me a chance to go down one of these factual bunny holes, and I appreciate it. Anything to add, Lois?
I did take the niacin at 500 milligrams a day, and it actually did make a difference. I never took more than 500, so I don't know if it would have improved even more, but it actually did help.
You bring up a great point. The cardiologists in America, for the most part, are the standard statement as well. Number one, we found out it didn't work because of those trials, which I don't think is the correct interpretation, just like the principal investigator. The other interpretation is, well, if you're going to use it, you got to use 2 grams or more. And I always keep saying, well, that's not true. If you're actually monitoring something other than Lp(a), like cardiovascular inflammation and the other bioindicators, you can see very significant improvement. So classically, you won't see niacin knock 2/3 or half even. It's usually decreased the Lp(a) by about 30%.
But
even with, and that's what happened with you. So, but even with that, if you're monitoring the other biomarkers like cardiovascular inflammation, you can often see very significant improvements. And again, I start seeing them a lot with patients at 500 milligrams, not the full 2 grams.